So this should be recording now. So I'm just on the repo for the project. So I'm just gonna create a new React app to work on. And let me do it. Okay. So now let's do join or the npm equivalent on your site. So React app. And this one I'm just going to call it reducer poultry. Right? And now let's just wait till that gets created. Shouldn't take long. Basically, the project is to do a simple to-do app, but we want to handle the state with a reducer. Great, so that's loading. Hopefully it doesn't take much. All right. Okay, let me just close some things. Well, that loads. All right, almost there, and we should be good now. Or not yet. This thing can a bit too long. And come on. All right, now it's done. Great. So now we can. Great. So let's cd into that project. And now let's just check the app. Let's just run it. You're on start. You should open another window with a Chrome. And let's start planning out. So this today's project. So let's let that load. And I think my computer is a bit slow today, so sorry about that. If it takes a bit too long. I'm not entirely sure what's like that. Okay, finally, great. Okay, so now we have the project running, and now we can start doing our to-do app. Okay, so first, let's get rid of all this stuff. And I'm going to create some new components. So right here, I'm going to create a new folder. I do this on the terminal because I think it's easier for me than using these buttons. But let's just create components, and I misspelled that, so okay. And I'm going to cd into that components, and on here I'm going to create a to-do list and a to-do. I think we can get the app with only those two components. Actually, I'm going to create a to-do form too. So let's create a to-do.js. I'm going to create a to-do form.js and a to-do list.js. Okay, great. And I was missing one command. So touch. right? And now those should be like the components, and I didn't go into the right folder, so well, that's not good. So let's take this out of the node modules. And sorry for taking a bit too long here. All right. And this has to be inside source. Great. And now I'm going to create a reducer folder. So make directory reducer, cd into that. And I'm going to create an index.js. All right, and now we should have all the components. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to fill those components in really quick. So I'm just going to create really simple ones. So const, this one's the to-do. So I'm going to return a div with an h1 inside that just says to-do. And export that. Export default to-do. And I'm just going to copy and paste these inside all the other components and change these to to-do form. And same here. And this one's going to be to-do list. Great. And now just to finish off the setup, I'm just going to import those into app.js, and then we can start building reducers and playing more with that. So right here, I'm going to say import, say to do, and components, to do. Here, this is going to be to do form, so I think. This is going to be to-do list. Okay, and I'm just going to render those in here. Actually, I'm just going to render the to-do and to-do list. Because the to-do is going to be rendered inside of the to-do list in a bit. So let's say to-do list first, and then the to-do form. Actually, the other way around. I'm going to save it, and now it should be rendering those two. Okay, that's good. And let's just import the to-do right here. So input to-do from to-do. Great. And now we should be rendering those three components. Great. So right here, I usually do that just to make sure everything's running correctly. So basically, we have app, and then we have the to-do form, and then we have to-do list, and to-do is inside of that. All right, now let's get started with our reducer. Now that we have the basic structure of our app set up. And where is it? Right here. Great. So now let's start building our reducer. Sorry. Right here, we want to first create an initial state. This is going to be an object, And inside this object, since we're going to do have to-dos, I'm going to create a to-dos property, and this one is going to be equal to an array. And I think the README provided an example to do. So let's open one computer. Be right here. And let's just grab that example to do and add it right here. So first, I want to reiterate that we need an array. Since we're going to be adding objects or items, we want to be able to like map over them and do some other array properties. So right here, let's just add our object. Sorry, and now our initial state is done. So right here, we only have a to-do property that is equal to an array with the to-do tasks beside of them. All right, and now we have to create a reducer. So I'm going to say export const, and I'm just going to call this reducer. And reducer, there we go. And this one's going to get a state and an action. And then in here, we're going to create a switch. So the switch is basically, it's going to look at the action type. And this is also how it works in Redux. And depending on what the action type is, it's going to fire that case. So it's going to execute whatever that case is returning. Right here, first we're just going to have default. And I lost my sim. 1 second. Right? And default is just going to return the state. And I think I'm missing something here. Let me check real quick. Let me check the Redux docs real quick. So Redux, let's see if we have the state, we have the action, we have the switch, and we should be returning default with state.
You spelled switch wrong.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So typos. There we go. And I don't want it to write it. So switch. There we go. And now that should be working fine. All right. So basically, default, that means is none of the action types. So we don't have any cases yet, but if we would have cases, and the action type that we're asking for it, that we're asking switch to look for, it doesn't exist, it's just going to go to default. And right here, we're going to return state. Great. So pretty much our reducer is already set up. So now we can import it into our app.js using the use reducer hook. And we also need to import, so here I'm going components and reducer. And we also need to import our state, our initial state, and our new reducer we created. So right here, I'm going to say import from, this one is going to look into reducers. And index. And we should be able to find initial state and the reducer. Great. And now that we're importing these two, we can use the use reducer hook. So right here, we have the use reducer. You can ignore this init. Okay, and the reducer, it's asking for an initial state and a reducer. I actually already named them like that. And what it's doing is grabbing the initial state and it's setting that into state. So if you saw today on Redux, let me go into the reducer. So today in Redux we had to do something like this. And so we have to do that. And actually the reducer is doing that for us. So reducer is setting that to the state. So that's going to be your first state. And since we're connecting the reducer, we have access to dispatch. And now the dispatch is going to send the action. So dispatch, it's the action. Whatever we send inside the dispatch, that's what we're sending, the action we're sending to the reducer. Okay, and now that we have that, let me get rid of this initial state because the hook's doing that for us. And right here, let's just console log state. And actually right here, I'm going to call this reducer state. And now if we go into Chrome and open DevTools, we should see the console log. The reducer state is an object, and that object has the to-dos property, and inside of that we have an array. Great, so now we're getting state. So now we can pass that into our to-do list. So let's call these items, and let's pass it as a prop. We can say state.use. Let me just double check. I call it like that. But yeah, state.todos, that's equal to our initial state. And then if we go to the to-do list, now we're going to be receiving props under the to-do list. So let's say props, and let's just console log in just because, so props. But we know we're receiving a props called item from the app items. So right here, we can pretty much just do a map through them since items is an array. So let's do props.items.map, and we get an item for each of them. And for each of them, we want to render a to-do. Great. So, and then we're going to pass each to-do item to the to-do as props. So right here, I'm just going to say item equals item. So this item right here. Great. And now let's go to the to-dos, and then we can check the console logs that everything's working. But we should be sending. Yes, so let's see. Can we read map of undefined? So props, and it seems that I didn't save the app.js. So let's save that. All right, and now we're getting those props. Yeah, now let's go and do some work on the to-do. So now on the to-do, we're also receiving props, and we're receiving those props from the to-do list, and we call that item. So, oh, wrong one. There we go. So right here, let's just say I'm just going to have an H3, so it's a bit bigger than a paragraph tag. And right here, I'm just going to say props.item, and let's see. Okay, so it should be props.item.item. So actually, I'm going to call this to do the prop, so I don't repeat myself down here. So this is going to be to do dot item. Great, and now we should be rendering that to do. Okay, so now we're rendering that to do. So now what we need to do next is the form. So now let's go to the form, and let's just create a quick form row. So first we need a use state to handle our input. Oh. And then to do form, it's going to receive props in a bit because we're going to send the dispatch, the function to run the dispatch. And right here, I'm just going to add a quick form, an input, and a button. Great. And let's say add to do. Okay, so that should be on here now. Great. So we have that to do, but we're not handling that yet. So to handle the input, we need to use use state hook. And let's just call this one input. And on here, there we go. The initial state, I'm just gonna leave it empty. Or actually, I'm gonna do it a bit. Initial state is going to be an object. And I'm going to set that object to this right here. And there's a couple of ways we could do this right here. One of them would be to set up or use state or initial value to have like an empty item and to create the ID using date.now. One option would be this one right here. And I think I'm going to use the other option because it's a bit simpler, but let's just make it work with this one. So now we want to our input, we want to add a value. And that value is going to be our item. So we want to say input.item. And then we want to add an onChange to be able to handle that input. And I'm just going to create a function that's going to be named handle input. Right? So let's create that function right now. So right here, I'm going to say const handle input. This one is going to receive an event from the input. And right here, we're going to change this state so we can handle it. So we're going to say set input. Actually, the ID is going to be, let's say, null for now at start because it hasn't been created yet. say spread input in. So I wanted to do it the longer way, just so we can use this right here, the spread operator. So when we do the spread operator, we're getting the whole information inside uh, the object we're looking at. So now if we do this, we're getting the completed and the IP, but we only want to modify the item. So right here, the item is going to be equal to event.target.value. So whatever we type in there. And just to check that it's working, we can do a console log. And I'm just going to add a comment input and console log input. So that should be changing now. So if I type, it looks like it didn't save. The computer's a bit slow, sorry about that. One load, great. Okay, so now if we see our input console log, we're handling that input. Great. Great. Now that we're handling the input, what we're going to do is that we have to create a function inside app.js to use the dispatch. Because that dispatch is going to go to a case inside our reducer right here, and that reducer is going to modify the to-dos. So let's create the case first, and then we can go from above from the end to the beginning. So right here, we're going to create a case, and that case, let's call it just add to do. And when that case it's being sent to the reducer, we want to return an object, because what we're returning is the new state. So we're going to be returning this whole object. And now we have to use the spread operator to fill that object. So we have to do dot, dot, dot. State. And the reason why we're using this state instead of this one, it's because our use reducer is setting the initial state to the state. So the use reducer, when we do something, it's sending these two. So the state and the dispatch is what we're receiving in the reducer. So state and action. And that's why it's called dispatch. You could actually just call it action here, but it's called dispatch because it's dispatching the action. So it's just like wording. Okay, so we're getting all the information of the initial state, and then we have to go into to-dos. And to-dos is an array. So now we're going to create an array. And in here, we also have to iterate through that to-dos array. So right here, we're going to say dot, 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 state, dot to-dos. And then we're going to be adding our to-do item right next to it, and we're going to be sending that to-do item as the payload. So right here, I'm just going to say action.payload. Great. And I'm also going to console log action payload. So you all see how it's being received. Actually, I'm going to console log the action, because that's going to include the payload and the type. So action. Great. So now that we have our case done, we can go to our app, and inside our app, we can create a function that is going to send that information to a reducer. Right here, I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it add new. This one's going to receive a to do, and in here, I'm sorry, and in here we're going to send a dispatch, and that dispatch is going to include first a type and a payload. So we're sending a type because that's what our switch is looking at. So our type is going to be the case we want to run. So if we're adding a to do, we want to say we want the action.type to equal to do, and we want our action.payload to equal that to do item we're going to add. So right here we can say dispatch, and that's an object, and we can say type. And let me go back to my reducer real quick. And I'll just copy that add to do case, add it right here. And then I'm going to say payload. And for now, I'm just going to say test, because we're still not sending anything to it. So let's test it real quick, just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to add a button, and I'm just going to call it test. And in here, I'm going to say on click, and I'm going to fire that add new function. So right here, I'm just going to add a console log. And I'm just going to say add fire, just to see in the console that it's actually being fired. And let's test it now. Okay. Let me save it again. All right. And when I press test, we see that the add fire from the function, it's being logged. And then if we go in our index, we're console logging the action. And actually, let me, this one, add another console log. And say add case fire. So this way we can actually demonstrate what's going on behind the scenes. So if we press test, we see that the fire function in app.js is being fired. We see that the reducer is getting the action, and that action has a payload of test and a type of add to do. And then we see, because we have the add to do type, our switch is firing the add case. So that's how we're gonna be sending the information down to our state. Right here, let me remove the comment out those console logs. Actually, I'm gonna delete that. Really need this one anymore. Great. And right here, instead of instead of test, we're gonna be sending that new to do item. Great. And now we have to pass this function to the to do form as props. And in a bit, I'm going to explain why we cannot use another use reducer in a different function, like we do with Context API or with Redux, that we can just choose whatever component we want. In this one, it has to follow your tree of components. But I'll go over that at the end. Okay, so right here, I'm just gonna say add to do. That's how my prop's going to be called. And this one I'm going to pass it as a callback function. And I'm going to say add new. And actually, I don't really need a callback function. Sorry about that. And if we do, we'll find out in a bit. All right, so we're passing the function down. And now if we go to our to-do form, right here, we're getting props. So now we can say on the form on submit, and I'm using on submit because if we press enter on the input, or if we click on the button, those two actions are going, or those two events are going to fire this on submit. So in there, I'm just going to say props dot add new. And also let's just console log form props. Right? Now let me save everything to make sure it's going to work over here. And now when I click add to do, we should that the case reducer, the reducer should get fired. So if I click add to do, okay, so we're missing something right here, and that's the prevent default. Because it's a form, when we click on it, that's going to reload the page. So let's fix that real quick by creating another function on top of it. So right here, let's just call it the same, const, let's say add to do. This one is going to receive an event from the form, and we have to use event dot prevent default. And on submit, we're going to fire this function. And after the prevent default, we want to fire the add new function that's going to set this one up. So right here we can say props dot add new and fire that. Yeah, now let's test that. So let's click add to do. And I think that's failing, so let's just, we still haven't sent anything to it. So let's just console log to make sure it's being fired. Make that a string. And click add to do. Okay, let's see why that's happening. So I'm going to click add to do. And let's try to fix that real quick. So we're doing prevent default, and we're firing this one right here. And see what's going on real quick. So I have to do, let's console log this one here. Add fire. Now let's check really quick why this is not going through. Oh, okay. I misspelled prevent default. Sorry. Typos. We all hate them. Good thing we saw it because sometimes it's something so simple you don't really think about it or check it. So you can read over it 1,000 times and you won't see the typo. So let's get that fixed. Okay, so we have prevent default, and now we should get that add fire console log. So let me save that. And now if I click add to do, add fire is going through. Great. So let's uncomment that this add new function. And now let's just check it's firing. It's going to fire, but I'm kind of OCD like that. I have to check all the functions. And actually, props add new is not a function. So I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, it's actually called alt do. So right here, I call that function add to do. So let's save that, and now it should fire. So if I click add to do, and props.add new is not a function, so let's see why it's saying that. Actually, I think this one has to be a callback maybe. But let me resave it because my computer is being a little weird today. And reload it, form props, we get the add to do function. Great. And if I click add to do, yeah. Now add to do is firing. Great. So we just did some quick debugging there on my fault because I seem to like typos a lot when I don't really. And now we can add that dispatch. So here we're actually going to send something to it. So we already have our input, and our input has the to do format, and on our set input we're getting that format and we're changing the item. So the whatever the to do name is going to be. I'm actually right here. I'm also going to modify the ID to be equal to date.now. And what this is going to do, so I'm just going to, okay, save everything just in case. So we should be logging, okay, and we'll save. Right here, we should be, so now it's not only handling the input for the item, now it's adding an ID. And that ID is just the today's date and time. So every time we change it, it will change too. All right. Now the only thing left to complete that add new functionality is that we have to send it to do. And to send it or to do is actually going to be just the input. So right here, I'm gonna send the input. So that's going to be this object right here. And after that, I'm going to set input to have the format it had before. All right, and now we should be able to add one. So real quick, let's go back to our reducer just to see what we did here. So we're firing the add to do because we're sending the dispatch of with the type of add to do, and right here we're getting all the previous to dos and we're adding the new one because we're sending our to do as the action payload. All right, so now let's just test it. Click enter, and now we're adding to dos. Great. Now let's toggle through them. So now what we're going to do next is that we're going to be toggling the completed state. So now to do that, we have to create another case. And now this case, I'm just going to name it toggle complete. And right here, we're going to want to return the state object, and we want to get everything inside the state. So we're gonna do state, and then inside the to-dos, we're going to be changing the state, the completed state. But to do this, we're going to need something to identify that item we want to change. So to do that, I'm going to use a map. So I'm going to say state.todos.map. So what this is going to do, it's going to grab each one of the to-dos in the array. So this one will say to do, and actually make my screen a bit bigger. Or I think that's a bit big. Real quick, should I make the font a bit bigger? Yes, all right. So let's make it a bit bigger so it's easier to read. All right, so right here, we're gonna map to our to-dos, and for now, let's just console log. Actually, let's console log to them, or I'll do it and then I'll demonstrate it using a console log up here. So we're going to map over our to-dos, and what map is doing, map is returning a new array of whatever we're returning inside here. So every time we return something from map, that's going to go into the new array. So right here, we're going to say, we're going to grab each to do, and we're going in the action.payload, since we need to identify it, we're going to be passing the ID. So right here, we're going to say if to do .id is equal to action.payload. So if the ID is the same, we're going to use a ternary operator, and we're going to be returning. Let me think for a second. So we're going to be returning the to do a new object, so new to do, and we're going to spread to do. So we're spreading to do, so we get the item and the completed, so we get all the information of that to do. And we're going to modify completed, and that's going to be equal to whatever the, oh, sorry, whatever the to-dos completed is not equal to. Else, we're just going to return the normal to-do. So what these ternary operator is doing, just going through it real quick. We're getting each to-do from the map, and then we're checking if that to-do ID is the same as the action payload. That is going to be the ID of the to-do we're going to be clicking on. And if those two are the same, we're going to be returning a new object with that to-do's information, and we're going to be toggling between true and false on the completed property. And if the IDs do not match, we're just gonna return the normal to-do. So we're not going to change anything. And I can do some console logging after that's done to make it a little bit more visual. All right. And now let's just, like we did before, let's create our toggle function. So right here, I'm gonna say const. I'm just going to call it toggle. This toggle function is going to receive an ID. And then let's just copy and paste this dispatch. So we're going to dispatch. We're going to fire dispatch, and now the type instead of add to do is going to be the toggle complete. Oh, I accidentally copied it. So the type is going to be toggle complete, and our payload now it's going to be that items ID. So now let's pass this function down to the to-do list. So let's just call it toggle, and that's going to fire the toggle function. So now let's just go to the to-do list real quick. So right here we're getting that function, and we want to pass that function down to each to-do. So let me do this Dustin style real quick. App, and then we have to-do list. I don't know how he writes so well using his mouse. It's hard. And the to-do list is going to have the to-dos. All right, so we're passing the function to this one. So this is the toggle function, and then we have to pass that function now to each to-do. So when we click on it, we fire the function that it's on app. All right. And do you all want me to bring that drawing back real quick? I didn't ask. So
The drawing you said?
Yeah.
No, I think I got it. It was an app and then got passed all the way down.
Yeah, so it's pretty much what we're doing, just a bit more visual. I'm gonna leave it up there for a second. So while I do this. All right, so now we're getting that function, which we call toggle. We're getting that here to props. So let's send it one step down. All right, great. And now we're going to have access to this toggle function inside of our to-do. So right here, I'm just going to create an on-click. And I'm just going, instead of just creating another function, I'm just going to do a callback, an anonymous arrow function. And in this one, I'm going to fire props.toggle, and we're going to be sending props.todo.id. Great. So now let's just go back to add and console log the ID here, or just say, I'm just going to say toggle fire, and let's test it out. Right here, if we click on it, we see that toggle fires, and then we see the action with a type of toggle complete and the payload of the ID of that specific to do. And then in our reduce source state, we now see that instead of being false, it's true. So we're toggling through it. And if we click on it again, now that should be false. Or actually, it's not that one, it's this one right here. I know it's false. So now we're toggling through it. So now, real quick, I'm just going to add some styling, some to do. I'm going to say on the H3, I'm going to add the class name. And right here, I'm actually going to do a ternary operator just to add and remove. So this is kind of the class list toggle we did back with vanilla JavaScript. So right here, I'm just going to say if props dot to do dot completed. So if that's true, we want that ternary to return a string. So that's going to be our class of strike. And if props to do completed is false, we want to remove that that class name. And real quick, let's go to app.css and add that class strike. And then let's say text decoration. And that's going to be, I think it's strikeout, or let's.
Is it strike through?
Yeah, I think let's check real quick.
It's actually a text decoration line through.
Line through. All right, great. Thank you. And I don't know why this is not helping me. So hopefully it's that. So let's test it.
Without the final T, Margel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of good looking for typos, because my spelling is not very good. Okay, so let's see now. And that's not firing. So strike, maybe have to import the CSS. So let's just do a quick import and add .css.
You don't need the quotes around it. I don't know if that changes anything on your.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forget we're in CSS and I'm not React Native, on React, not React Native. Okay. Well, let me just check that through real quick. CSS line through. Yeah, so we had that right. Maybe it didn't save. So that has a class name of strike. Let's save those, so we'll make sure it's working. Let me reload it. And strike. Okay, if this is true, it's going to return strike. So let's check that on the React real quick. So these ones are changing. So React. Let's check this one right here and click on it. And it's not adding the class. So let's just look for it real quick. And I'm doing something wrong. Class eternity. Let's see that.
You try doing an inline style on it. Doing something.
Yeah, I mean, inline style could also work. Someone said, oh, okay, Joshua, thank you. So it was actually another typo. Because
Oh, is it?
yeah, I'm looking for complete, and
Oh.
it's actually completed.
Okay.
Okay, typos, they're gonna be damned on me. Okay, so completed. I spent many hours solving typos. I have, I kind of hate them a bit. Okay.
We work with code and not English.
No, that's working. And yeah. All right, so now our toggle is working, so that's good. And now let's add, how much time we have left? All right, we have enough time. So now let's add the clear. Or actually, let me demonstrate how that's working with the map. Shouldn't take long, so let me just copy this map right here. I'm going to add it up here. And I'm going to set this one to just test, or actually demo. And great. And over here, let's console log demo. So basically what this is doing, if we click on it and go to console, and so yeah, pretty much I want to demonstrate it. So map returns a copy of the array, but the way it returns the copy, so let's say you have an array with 3 items. And what map's doing, so map, if you don't return anything, it's just going to return an empty array, or actually it's going to return not an empty array, it's going to return an array with 3 undefineds. So I'm just going to add use. Because what it's doing, every time you return something inside the map, so for each to do, if we return to do, every time we return a to do, that adds that to that item of the new array. So for example, let's say this second one has the same ID. So in this one, instead of returning to do, we're returning a modified to do object. So this one is going to affect this one right here. And then for the third one, it's returning the to-do that it's getting from there. So that's basically how the map is creates the copy of that array. And that's why when we do a return on a for each, nothing happens. Because it's, for each is just going through the array and it ends there. And let's clear that. And this demo, it was just to show that it's returning an array. So if we click here, demo is equal to an array. Actually, let me add a couple more. So right here, this one had a true, and in this one, first it returned the first one. I'm sorry. Yeah, so it returned the first one. I think the first one was modified to false. Okay, sorry about going around the subject. But this one is the first one is false, and since the ID is not the same, it returns the same one. The second one is false, but the ID matches, so that one's returning the new modified to-do object. And the third one is false, and the ID doesn't match, so it returns just the same object. All right, and let's get rid of this again. And let's bring back that action console. Great. And now let's do the clear completed. So
Hey, real quick, I'm gonna have to jump off here. Are you gonna post this this recording in the TL hours?
yeah,
Awesome, I really appreciate it.
all right. All right, so we were doing the toggle complete, or sorry, the clear completed. So right now we're gonna do case, and we're gonna say clear. Let's call our case clear completed. And then this one, we're going to return we have to return an object because our state is an object. And then we have to get all the state information using the spread operator. And then on to-dos, we're going to do something with a similar approach that we did with the toggle complete. So what we're doing here, we're also going to grab the state.use. And we're also going to send and now we're going, instead of sending the ID, I'm going to send the completed. So I'm just going to send a true or a false. So state.use, and I'm going to use a filter. So filter is going to iterate through the array. So it's going to grab each item of the array, and that's the to-do. And now on the return, so filter, what it's doing is kind of similar to math. But now it's only going to return, it's only going to fill the copy array with the items that match the condition we say here. So if we want to return the items we want to return the items that have a completed property of false, and that way we're going to be deleting all the items with a completed of true. So right here, we're gonna say filter all the, actually right here, we're going to say filter all the to-do completed that are false. So if completed is false, it's going to go into the new array. And if completed is true, it doesn't match with the condition we're given it. So it will be deleted. Okay, and now let's just create that function. So I'm just going to call it clear. That's going to get a completed. And in here, let me just copy the case. And we're going to do a dispatch. And the type is going to be the clear completed, and the payload is going to be that completed. So this is going to be a Boolean value. Great. And now that's on the to-do list, I believe. So let's send that function. So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to call it clear. And I'm going to send that clear function. So now these to-do lists should be getting that clear as props. Or let me see. I think I didn't add a button, but let me add that right now. So button and clear completed. And let's add an on click. And actually, we don't need to send anything to the to our reducer, and we'll see that in a bit. So on click, that's just going to fire props.clear. And right here, this one doesn't need a payload because we're just checking the state that it was there already. So this one's just going to be a function with a type clear completed. And now let's test it. And it looks like it didn't save my reducers. So, okay. All right. Let's add some of them. Let's set some of those to completed. And now it's just deleting those. And we have 30 minutes left, so I think I'm going to add a deleted case, so we can delete each one of them individually. So right now I'm going to say call this case delete to, and right here we're going to return, and that return has to be an object. And we have to spread the state. And then say to do's, we're going to use a filter, and now we're going to be sending the ID because we only want to delete the one that has that ID. And right here, we're going to say save.todos.filter. We're going to use a filter again. And that filter is getting each one of our to-dos. And now we have to set our condition. So let's say to return all the to-dos that have the ID that doesn't match with the action.payload ID. Okay, so we're going to be sending the ID of the one we click, and if that ID doesn't match with the to-do ID the filter is checking, that's going to send it into the to-dos array. And for the one that has the ID, it's just going to ignore it because it doesn't match this condition. So now let's just create that function real quick. Const delete. This one is going to take an ID. And then I'm just going to copy this one right here. And why is this delete like that? I think it's just my computer being slow. All right. So the type is going to be delete to do, and the payload is going to be the ID. Yeah, that should be fine. All right. And now we're gonna send that delete function down right to the to-do list, and then we're gonna be sending that to each one of our to-dos. So props.delete. And if I were to do, I'm just gonna add a button. I'm gonna say delete. And from this one, I'm gonna add an on-click event. And this one's going to be props.delete. And we're gonna pass the to-do ID. Okay, let's save everything down the line. I think it won't let me call that function delete. Yeah, because I think delete is actually a JavaScript function, I think, to access to delete something from memory, I think. So let's check that real quick. Yeah, so it's an operator. Delete operator removes a property from an object. All right, so we cannot use delete. Let's just call it delete to. Great. And another typo, pros instead of probes. Line 12. Okay, so props. Great, and now that should be good. So let's go in here. And it looks like I broke the app. So let's see what's going on. Right here. Let's see our user state. Let's console props here. Okay, and item. Let me delete this delete button. So this delete button is causing some problems. So I'm just going to close it on its own div. I'm not really sure why that's happening. Let's see if this fixes it. Oh, okay, it's because of these. It's because I have to use it because I'm sending something to that delete function. When React sees this, React is thinking that it's firing the function. So we have to use a callback. And I think that hopefully that should fix it now. And yeah, that fixed it. So when you're doing like an on-click or just an event function, and you're sending something inside that function, so if we were just wanting to fire delete, we would type it like this. And since we're sending something in, we have to use a callback function. So we don't create like a loop of that function firing. I'm not entirely sure why that happens, but it creates an infinite loop. All right, and now we can test them. So let's add a bunch of them. Right. Let's first delete a couple, so that deletes the individual item. And now let's get rid of some of them using the clear completed ones. Okay, and that works. And we have 20 minutes more. So are there any questions or anything? Or I could also do a quick recap of Redux if y'all want to. And if not, this could be the end of the TL hours today. So any questions? No? Everyone's feeling good? All right, great. So it's been nice spending my evening with you, doing a walkthrough of this project. I really enjoyed it, and I hate my typos, and I hope you all hate typos too, because typos suck and they make you waste a lot of time and brain power. But sometimes you can also learn a lot from them because you Google around for solutions of a problem that isn't really there, and you kind of learn from that. So I don't know, it's a hate-love relationship. But all right, I'll stop recording now, which I don't really know.